Good evening, everybody, and thank you for logging on to Are You Ready for Government Contractor with Edgar Hernandez from Atlas. Edgar, if you want to do a quick background, and then we can get started. Make sure you can share the screen and we'll get going.
Sure, perfect. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Kenya. Thank you to Suffolk Community College for the opportunity, especially the EAP program or the Entrepreneurial Assistance Center. I for some of you that might know me a little bit, but just to give you a sense of who I am, I've been participating in government work for close to probably over 18 years or so. It's a passion of mine. It's something that I focus on a daily basis. And one of the things is really mentoring businesses to really deal with this, but also in business operations and really being successful in their field and in their industry. So this is why I started Atlas, and I'll talk about Atlas a little bit more. But the partnership goes way back with the Entrepreneurial Assistance Center years ago. So it's a partnership that continues to um, play a part in today's market, and we are here to support you. So whatever you need from us to get you over the hump, please let us know. But I'm going to get started with the presentation so we can get going. And then we'll leave the Q&A or the questions for the end. And then I'll do my very best to answer all your questions. So please bear with me for a moment.
While we're getting that going, I just want to say if you are here um, for extra credit in one of your classes, please put your name and your professor's name in the chat, and I will let them know you attended.
All right. So are you ready for government contract? And and it's always something that you need to ask yourself before you even get started, because a lot of people jump into this thinking that the government's ready for me, the government's ready to do business, and that's not the truth. That's not right. That's not correct. You need to prepare yourself. You need to understand the difficulties that come with government contracting. So it's important to really look at your business, look at yourself, look at your team, and look at your offerings. Do they really match up? The question always is, does the government buy what I sell, right? And if they do, am I going to be competitive enough? And these are the things that we're going to be touching on. So it's important to really understand it early on. The more prep, the more planning, the more strategy early on, the better chance you're going to have an opportunity to bid and participate in the government process. So, for us, we're going to talk about, Atlas a little bit. Um, Customer defines, understand the difference between government and private. That's important to really understand, because what you do in the private sector is never the same in the government sector. So you'll see the differences between the two, and that's really important to really get a handle on. Um, can the private sector get you ready for the government? Yes, that's exactly what you should do. That's what you should focus on, is private sector, and then coming into the government. If you have a lot of experience and you have a lot of capacity, yeah, you can go into the government anytime. But I think that what I always advise our businesses or anyone I'm working with is to really get their private sector business running, earn some money, earn some, that earn that revenue, and then you use that revenue and experience to pursue government work. And then number three, we're going to prep for government, things required. What is it that you need to have? And what I also did was sort of do a government roadmap. And sometimes you look at the roadmap and you're like, oh, it's just stuff I already have. But have you really looked at it before you even pursue it? like your company structure, do you have the right documentation? Is it ready? Do you owe taxes? Have you paid taxes? There's a lot of things to consider before, once you get into that first step of go, on the roadmap. And then we talk about bidding and pricing and what you need to consider when you're putting that together, right? What are the things that a price, when you're putting a price, what are the factors you're looking at to in order to engage in the private or government sector? And then we're going to talk about opportunities, where to find these opportunities. So it's important to understand that government buys just about everything, just about, but every level of government actually does a lot of purchase. So it's important to know where to go. So, Excelsior Business Development Corporation, or the DBA's Atlas Co., is a mentoring support services organization. It was found. It was something that, from doing this for so long and really understand what the businesses were facing, I decided to really start an organization that will support businesses in all facets of business. But also working with our partners with the Entrepreneur Assistance Center, working with other partners in the industry, private sector, and really bringing all those pieces together. So it's really working with the businesses one to really understand what needs to be done internally, externally. We are funded by one of our folks, which is IHD, and this is a picture that we took when we did our grand opening. So what is government? And government, again, purchases just about everything, but there are laws, there's regulations, there are procedures, and something I even didn't put there is policies. So it just keeps going on and on. So there is a process for everything. There's a step by step, and it has to be followed. They don't deviate a lot, and if they do, there's still a process for that deviation. So you have to remember that. They abide by law. They abide by regulations and the procedures in place. And the reason why is, just think about this. You pay taxes when you go to buy gas, when you go to Target, go to Home Depot. If you look at your receipt, there are taxes associated with just about everything. So now that tax collection, the government is going to spend it to provide services to their constituents, the people that live within that government, either city, state, county, if the federal government. So everybody collects a tax, either on the sales tax or on the income tax. So, but that money needs to be spent wisely. You cannot, the government can't just spend because it wants to spend. Everything is budgeted and spent. So they budget, that's why they submit a budget every year, and then they spend that money based on that budget. You have to also understand that the government has a 60 to 120 day payment structure. So, when you deal with the private sector, you get your payment in less than 30 days. But that's not happening here. There is a wait time. And does the wait time improve over time? It does. But it also becomes a problem from time to time because accounting and the department you're working with have two different policies. So that actually also creates friction. So you have to be prepared to withstand that blow in terms of dollars that monies that you need to collect. So if you're out of money for 120 days, 60 to 120 days, how are you going to cover that temporary displacement of money? So either you have to borrow money, you have to have a line of credit. So you have to be prepared for that. Like I said earlier, there is, with the responsibilities, everything that they spend on has a bidding process. So you have to really go through that. There's a bid for everything. Even if it's a quick, I want to buy paper, you need to get 3 bids. right? So that part is, are you willing to play that game and spend a lot of time doing it? So you have to be mindful of that. There's also a pre and post award pre and post award required. And what I mean by that is that before or during the process of bidding on something, before and during, and then post is closeout. When you finish the project, that's gonna happen. That's also, you have to sign off. So there's part of that. There's something called good faith based effort when it comes to minority women owned businesses. And also the service disabled vets have, part of that certification program. So good faith based effort is this one rule that's actually quoted in government documents that says that the government and anyone involved in the process would make their good faith based effort to be inclusive of smaller firms, minority firms, women-owned businesses. So they must engage with it either by making that effort. So the government is basically throwing out this trust blanket, but the government must abide by it. When in order for you to do business with the government, you got to be registration is required. You can't just go, hey, I want to submit a bid. Also, if you're submitting a bid in another state, you have to either register your company there and register as a vendor at the same time. So there's a lot of registrations that you must comply with. And then certification is optional, but these programs that the state has required, that the state put in place, or the city, you got the Suffolk County, Nassau County, you got the city of New York, you got the state, and the federal government has programs too. But our state actually has some really great programs for minority and women-owned businesses. And the reason why you see the word optional is because optional means that you can decide if you want to get certified or not. But certification is not mandatory to compete. It's mandatory. It's only required if there is a set of a 30% goal and that you're competing in that pool. But in its entirety, you don't have to be certified. You just have to be able to compete. One with experience, pricing, and value. Those are the three major factors usually. Remember, it's a structured process and flexibility is very limited. It's very rigid. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like you have to go down the list. And if you're gonna deviate from it, you have to have a justification of why. So a lot of people need to really understand that early on when you're getting into this whole entire process or government market. So the private sector, quick negotiations, approvals, simplified terms and conditions. You can walk out and be done in a heartbeat, and it's a handshake and you're good. But the one thing is when the government, so the difference here when it comes to payments, when the government contracts you out, they are required to pay. But in the private sector, there's a greater likelihood that you might not get paid, and things do happen. And I bring that up because you got to see that the government, once they commit to you by contract, the only way you will not get paid is when you don't perform services. If you perform the services and it's in your contract, you're going to get paid. Everything when it comes to the government must be on paper. It's hearsay, verbal conversations do not matter at all. So that's why you have to also, even in the private sector, you have to get used to using contracts, writing things out, making sure people understand what you're going to be doing and what you need to get paid for. So you can't be vague in what you're trying to communicate or you're going to be doing. In the private sector requires relationship and trust. And it's a big thing, but the funny thing is that also should go under government. Government is just like another client. They have to trust you. It is a relationship, but the bidding actually can overcome some of those things or those challenges if you don't have a strong relationship and trust. But you have to build those things early. You still have to. Private sector is based on volatility or market conditions. We had the financial crisis, Hurricane Sandy, pandemic, right? You saw everything just shut down. The government was still operating, spending money, no matter what. Services, everything that had to be provided was there. So that's the biggest difference. Market conditions don't control spend. When a budget is approved, they have to spend that money all the way through. If they don't spend, it goes back to the treasury, basically. That's what it means. When it comes to payment terms, you get paid on the 30 days, it's great. But these contracts are volatile, and hey, that's what we're trying to get at with the private market. But I always tell again my clients and people that get advisement is that they should always start in the private sector because you got to really get your business, you got to get your business sense in. You got to get an understanding before you even execute anything else in the government. So prepping for to become a responsible contractor. So you're going to hear terms like responsible, responsive. Those two terms go hand in hand. They're not separate things. They mean two different things, but they actually go hand in hand. So a responsible bidder or responsible contract is that they have the necessary things to perform on a contract. They have everything in place before they get started. And the items you see here where I put are fully licensed and bonded, these are samples of things that you need to have. It could be in construction, it could be in different things, but your job is to make sure that you meet the requirements before you even engage. So for example, like if you're a plumber, you have to be fully licensed and bonded. You can't have wage violations, not paying your employees. And I bring up construction because it's really important, but if there's a requirement for OSHA, understanding prevailing wages, offer health insurance, provide benefits of employment to workforce. So there's a lot to do. So you have to have all of these things in place. Now, if you're one person shop, you go, oh, but I don't, these are just examples. They're not I just took pieces of things that usually come up. So you got to know in your industry, for example, if you're doing staffing, do I need to be licensed with the Department of Consumer Affairs? Or should I register with the state? Or do I have the proper insurance for the type of business I'm running? These things have to be done early. This is all the prep work. This is how you prep for being responsible. Responsive contractor. Responsive means that you are on point, responding, you answered all the questions, you know what the government is asking for, and you are immediately responding back. You have answers to the questions, or you are the solution provider to the government. So that's being responsive. So a responsive bid has everything in place. Signatures are done. You submitted your proposal. You submitted everything on time. You submitted to the right place. You didn't submit it somewhere else. You have the proper bond or surety bond. And your price proposal is spot on. So I put the common issues, but I also I'm telling you what you're gonna need in order to be responsive. That means that you didn't leave anything undone, or you didn't submit what was required. That means that you're unresponsive. So you need to pay attention to the details. So here's a roadmap that I put together. So if people understand what you need to put in place, right? Because the roadmap should give you, and you can always add to the roadmap. You can keep adding and adding, but also making sure that you are in compliance with everything that you're doing in every phase. So in phase one, business structure, you know, am I a sole proprietor? Because a lot of people just sometimes go with the easy route and oh, I'm going to be a sole proprietor. Sole proprietorship for government work does not work. It is, if you understand business structures, you can get into a lot of problems if you are in the wrong structure. You have to understand that that you need to separate your personal and business as a whole. So you don't want your personal, your social, your name. If something goes wrong with the business, you don't want it to be mixed up with the business. And now it ruins your credit, it ruins everything else. So that's why you need the right business structure. Insurance. Do I have insurance? Does it meet the standards of the industry, but also the government and the private sector? Because some people just get really cheap insurance and they think they have insurance. They didn't read the documents. So you have to read the documents. You have to understand what exclusions I have in my insurance. So you have to look at that. A CPA, a licensed CPA, not a bookkeeper, not someone that manages your books. It has to be a CPA. A CPA can actually guide you and give you information, also protect your business interests because they're monitoring your day-to-day transaction, right? They are providing you with feedback or information that you can make a better decision. It helps with your pricing, helps with your cost. So it's important to have that in place. Now, I'll say this, you need to confirm, when you pay for these services, you are not at their mercy. They work for you when you pay that monthly service. So when you need information, you need guidance, whatever services you're getting, you can ask whatever questions you need because that's what they are there for. So it's important to really understand that. Always, it's when you're gonna sign up with the CPA, interview them, ask them questions. Don't feel like you're obligated just to do it. But you have to make sure that you engage early to understand if that person is right for you. Also, a big thing to also remember, does the person work with my kind of business? Is it retail the person only does? Do they work on services? Do they understand business law? Or they only do with commodities? So you have to figure out what they're good at. So don't take it for granted that everything's just, oh, it's CPA should know. No, there are CPAs that are really good at one or several industries. So you need to figure out the industries for you. And especially if you're a CPA, if you're doing prevailing wage work, which prevailing wage work is set rates by the federal government or the state, the Department of Labor, and you have to keep track of that because if not, you get audited, and if not, you get a fine. Simple as that. An attorney, you're going to need an attorney sooner or later. So this is why if you start prepping now, you start getting everything ready. A good attorney that understands business law, but also contracting law is vital. So making sure you ask a lot of questions. And they shouldn't be charging just for you to ask them questions about what their understanding and what their focus is. Do not get a divorce attorney to handle your business stuff. And I bring that up, and divorce is always a hot topic with certain issues, but the right attorney is what gets you where you want to be. So you're not going to get a business law attorney to do divorce, right? So you have to make sure you get the right person. Financing, and this is key. Financing is really important. Remember, I talked about 60 to 120 days. But if you understand where you're going to get financing from and what their requirements are, so like if you use Bank of America, if you use Capital One, you can go into the bank and say, look, what do you need in order for me to put out a business loan? And then what are the requirements? And if you understand those requirements, you start working towards them. A lot of businesses wait into either they get into an opportunity or contract, or they're in such deep problems, and then they're trying to pull financing. Financing should be something you're targeting early and preparing for. There's also CDFIs, right? Working with community lenders. They have different criteria. So what is your criteria? And you can work towards that. Now, I'm going to give you a tidbit, and I want you to remember this. You're not in the business of reporting negative numbers to the IRS and to the state. Going back to the CPA or anyone that tells you that you should be reporting losses for 3 years, that's not true. That's not right. You should not be reporting losses and be like, well, but I haven't made any money. Yeah. If you made zero is zero, but a loss is a loss. And that's hard to overcome, because for every year of a loss, you have to make it up on the next year, the 2 years down the line. Why? Because it hurts your financing. So you see, you see how I prepped up. I understood if I report losses, it's going to affect my financing. The example I give everyone is, would you lend money to a business that is reporting losses? If you go and buy a home, when you go to the mortgage company, do you tell the mortgage company, hey, I lost $20,000 last year, but you should give me a mortgage either way? They're going to be like, no, you're not getting a mortgage. Same concept. So you want to be out ahead and make sure you focus on that. No tax liabilities. You should not be owing taxes. You should be focused on making sure that everything is cleared up. You should not be in that position. Connect to resources. So you should be working with the Entrepreneur Assistance Center, taking courses, participating, working with technical people like myself or other folks on the team here to really get a handle on your business. There's also, courses for business plans, model canvas, which is one. So there's a lot of stuff, a lot of resources that are there for you in order for you to make an informed decision later. So I don't let these courses pass you by, or resources, and then think you're going to get ahead. It's better to learn something and then apply. Ask the question before you apply, before you do something, because a lot of people do stuff and then it's harder to fix, or you lose money. You don't want to be losing money when you're starting your business or you're conducting business. Education is key. I just talked about that. Corporate paperwork. Your corporate paperwork should be in order. It should be in compliance. A lot of people that open up a company, they think that, oh, it's open, I'm done. No, there's maintenance that goes with it. There's compliance. You know, like for C corporations, you're supposed to meet monthly or yearly. You're supposed to keep documentation. You need stock certificates. You need your bylaws or operating agreement for an LLC. There's stuff to do. Bank account, set up a bank account, work with a bank that actually has your best interest. Um, see, see if they really focus on your type of business. Sometimes they don't. And also, one thing I always look at is their availability in terms of the week. You know, how many days are you open? Does it fit with my type of business? Because if if you don't open on Sunday, but my Sunday is the day that I do all my transactions, I can't do anything. So I look at different things like that. But also, what is your criteria again for lending or for me doing anything for my business? Because every bank has a different criteria. Payroll, if you need payroll, start looking at that. What is that cost gonna be? So a lot of people think it's just I sign up for payroll and stuff. No, it is a monthly service, sometimes a weekly service. Um, I've had some businesses lose $5,000. They got ahead of themselves. They had no work lined up, and all of a sudden they spent $5,000. They weren't supposed to. So these are the things that you don't want to do. So you want to understand, when am I going to need payroll? When am I going to need workers' comp? My insurance, general liability insurance. There's three types of insurance: general liability, workers' comp, disability insurance. The most important one for insurance for anything is general liability. That covers you. But with payroll is when either you're going to start paying employee taxes, employer tax, because remember, employees pay their own taxes, employers pay their own. Also understand payroll. When you say, hey, I'm going to pay this person $20 an hour, it's not $20 you're paying. You got to add all the costs for that employee on top. So that $20 might come out to be $26 an hour, because there's $6 of taxes and fees and costs to maintain that employee through payroll. So you got to understand that. Then when you get all this stuff set up, then you can start moving into different things that you need to move closer to government work. So the first thing is you register, like we talked about. And if you qualify for any of the programs, WWE, DBE, 8A, and veteran, if you qualify, go for it. But you need to get everything sorted out in phase one. I always say, once you get set up in phase one, you should be seeking private work immediately. You should be generating money. If you're not, then you got to work on your marketing plan and make sure you enhance that to get, to start doing business. You're going to need a corporate capability statement, which is like a one-page resume. That's really vital for anything that you're doing in government work. Research your competitors. Understand, am I going to be able to compete? Is my pricing correct? What do they have that I don't have? Can I market myself differently? Do I have a solution that my competitors don't have? You got to answer these questions. The bullet point right after is a pricing analysis. It's going to lead you there. Well, all that research is going to say, hey, we produce the same item. Can I drop my price a little bit? Or are we equal? Or do they have more supply than I do? So these things have to be taken into consideration. Continue education. You see, I don't leave education out. I always say you should be training, learning at all times. It should never stop because you got the business open there. No, there's other things to learn. You must be developing your capacity as much as your business. And also, when you're in education, it leads to different opportunities that you never thought about. So think about that. Strategic planning. Plan ahead. Plan 3 months, 6 months, a year. I was talking to a business and I said, look, you need to put some milestones of what you want to do. You got milestones, what are your goals? And what are your outcomes for the month? And if you do all of that, that actually will let you really come out stronger than ever because you're looking at things. What have you been doing? Well, I want to make 20 calls this week. I want to make sure that so out of those 20 calls, I get 5 potential clients. And then I want out of those 5 clients, I want to at least earn $10,000. That's planning. So you got to look at that. Build corporate experience. The only way you build is by getting clients. You have to get those clients. See, I even said it in phase one, but it also leads into phase two. You need to really start marketing your business and gaining business, making money. In phase three, you want to start relationship building, right? You want to meet with potential private clients and government by attending local events, connect with industry leaders, seek out professional development. And then one of the things that a lot of people don't do, and it's a lost art sometimes, but it depends on also what you do. But anything that you do, you should always look at your quality assurance and controls. It's not just one, it goes, and I always say, hand in hand, right? You have to look at it. How do I maintain the high level of quality of service, a high quality of or high quality of service or product? How do I maintain that quality? I have to assure it through the process. But if something, how do I check on it? How do I make corrections as I go through? It's like when you're building anything, right? We have a lot of research going on. We have things that are happening, right? So it goes through a process of improvements, right? So you have to always look at it. How can I make it more better? Is it really hitting the client's needs, right? Is it creating a solution? Can it be considered that it's deficient? If it is, how do I fix it? So you have to have that all mapped out. And what that does is actually that's your value add. You have a quality assurance and control system. A system is not a computer. Systems is a process, something you have in place to ensure that you are doing certain things to be in compliance. Reduce liability and risk is important. You have to look at everything that might be a liability. What's risky? You don't want to do certain things that might cause you to liability can be loss of clients, loss of money. If I do this, it's too risky. It might risk my business. So you have to protect your business. And business development versus sales. So a lot of people can think that it's the same thing. It's not. Business development is where you're developing business as you go. It is not any if you hit it on the first try where you're developing a client, great news, you're good at it. But business development takes time. It's over a course of a time frame. So you have to say, okay, how long is it going to take me? It's a constant business relationship building. You have to build relationships. Sales is just you want to buy here, done. You're good. You walk away, you sell it, done. So it's important to do that. So just understand, and now a lot of people sometimes are not comfortable making sales, but when you own a business, you're gonna have to make yourself comfortable. You're gonna have or make yourself uncomfortable, they say. you're gonna have to go out there, because if you can't generate money, then the business won't succeed. So you have to be out there, and you can't be afraid. But that's why if you're preparing everything, you'll be better off. It's like when you have kids, right? You before you head out the door, you prepare the bag, you prepare the snacks, you prepare their milk, you prepare everything. So when you go out, you don't have to come back and fix it. Everything is done and everything is seamless. Same concept. Number four, you develop a team you develop a team, and that's when you start growing, you start adding people, but you continuously train them to develop. You have to training, keep adding. Do not leave your people to think they're in their own island. And what is a person to you if they are not learning something, or they are not learning and applying something? So that's why it's continuous training to develop your talent. So finding out courses or things that you could put them into. Remember, they learn something. That means that all that information could come back and double or triple the amount of effort. So that's something to think about. One thing that's not here is that everyone is a team player. Everyone on your team should be able to understand your business as a whole. So you really want them to focus on understanding the customer service option, or the customer can be private or government. How do you handle that? Now, there can't be someone that is always responsible for everything. Oh, the boss is not here, I can't answer. I really don't know. If you really don't know anything about the business, that means that the business is not making money. The business has to generate cash. At the point of inception, at the point of contact, that person should be able to drive the business. How can I help you? Let me look into that. Where can I call you? Let me get your email address. I'm gonna do this right now. Let me see what I can do. I want to get you an answer, because that customer can be the one that makes all the decisions, and they feel comfortable. They relationship building, trust. It's not just one person answering. Oh, I'm an administrative person, but you can't you can't help the customer out or the person calling. That shouldn't be that. It has to be transferred over to someone else. It just doesn't. That just doesn't make sense. Um, Figure out your micro and macro approach. It's important to understand that, and you're asking yourself, what do you mean by that? Your micro approach is your type of management style. You look at things with a magnifying glass, or you just leave it open and say, I'm looking at the field and just allowing people to do what they're supposed to do. But that's a style. You can interchangeably use it where you're focused micro, and then you back off, or you speed up, or you slow down. So you have to look at that. But if you're gonna do micro, you gotta be very supportive, because it's very intense. That's something that I always put out. Submit your bids and proposals. This is where you're bidding, you're a part of the process. Um, if you lose bids, it doesn't mean that you lost, but you submitted something that most people can't do. So it's always a win. But when we talk about lose to win approach, is that even if you're losing, you're still learning something. So you lose, you ask a question, why didn't I win? Was I responsible? Was I responsive? Was it my pricing? Did we go over budget? What is happening? And then that's something that you can always use to improve. So then you lift off and you have success. Either it's going to be in the private sector or in the public sector, but you can win, you can lift off at any given time, but you need to go through these steps and really focus on it. One thing that it's not here, a business plan or using the business model, I think it's the business model canvas is also another great way because you're planning all these things. You have to lay these things out. Your ideas are sometimes based on emotions, dreams, but is it reality? Are you going to do something that's going to be realistic? And if you put it on paper, 9 out of 10 times, it's going to answer your question. Oh, this makes sense. And that's sort of refinement. You don't want to refine when you're doing business. You want to refine before. Refine your ideas, your approach. So bidding and pricing. So remember, so the government does an evaluation. What is that evaluation criteria? So they always put a criteria. Hey, we're gonna bid. Your pricing should be based on these things: experience, things that you've done, and pricing at the very end is gonna take um are you within the price within the range that we asked, or are you competitive? Pricing plays a major factor, but your value can sometimes overcome that. Now, if you're way overpricing your value, it just doesn't work. But you have to be within a certain range. So they say social value, but it's just value. What is it that you're doing? I always promote something that, when you're trying to deal with the government, what is your value or solution that you're providing? If you can do that, then everything else works. Bidding and pricing is about accessibility, technical ability, ability to deliver on time, innovation, environmental considerations. And these are things that do come up. Sustainability, customer service. That means, do I have the proper personnel to respond? Can I maintain a high level of quality? These are things that they're always looking for. So you'd be like, oh, but that's the bidding, and then pricing comes with that. Now, when you're working on pricing, again, you have to work with your CPA, looking at industry, looking at your competitors, and then try to put that. But pricing is always based on a couple of things: your initial price, your overhead, and your net profit. Those are the three major factors. Compliance. So a lot of people, and I would say a lot of people, let me stop using a lot of people. Many people, let's use something different. Forget that if you're running a business, you have to maintain that business. You have to maintain the paperwork. You have to maintain responding to the state, to the IRS, everyone. You have to pay sales tax. All of these things are part of compliance. With government work, it requires additional compliance. That means that you're supposed to submit your invoices. You're supposed to keep track of all your payments and your payments and your receivables and costs. So there's a lot of monitoring that takes place. So you have to always have a compliance piece associated with it. If your compliance is faulty, it leads to many problems, and it can lead to loss of contract and non-payment. Now, opportunities. So, like I said earlier, government collects taxes. There are services that need to be provided on all levels. So the federal government has a website called SAM. It's not the greatest website, I'll be honest with you. The changes they made are not user friendly, so a lot of people get confused. But in order again to do business with any of these levels, you have to be registered. So SAM is also the registration board. New York State has a website called New York State Contract Reporter. And that website for New York State, you don't have to be registered. You just have to be a vendor, and you can bid on anything. With New York City has something called Passport. And New York City, you are required to have a PIP account, which is a vendor account. And then with Suffolk County, it just requires a registration. In Nassau County, registration, which you have to go through. And you have to get approved in the system, especially Nassau County. Nassau County would not let you bid on anything if your paperwork is not straight. But all these levels have, again, certifications. And that's a whole different ball of wax. But at least you know, this is a really great place to start. You can start viewing bids and understanding what those requirements are. And then now the prep work starts. Okay, do I have everything in order to compete in this space? That's something you can do. Thank you very much. All right. We can open it up to questions if there are any questions. Any questions?
Feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions. Oh, a hand's up.
All right, all right.
Can you hear me?
Oh, you loud and clear.
Hi, my name is Gracia. So I have a question for you as you talk about New York City. So I'm an employee of both the federal government and New York City. And I know that in order to do business with New York City, and you're an employee, you have to go through the ethics board. Does that require also for doing business with them?
Yeah, so if you're, yeah, I mean, you have, I was just talking about this today with, was, not today, yesterday with some person that had similar issue. The ethics board, you're not supposed to be bidding on anything in the federal space or, in the city space. The reason why is because you're an employee of that level of government. So like, for example, the city has something where you have to wait almost a year before you can bid on anything. The federal government has other requirements. So you have to look at that. But that doesn't mean you can't do business with the state or the counties. You can do business with them. It's just you can't do business with that level of government. That's the one thing.
So, okay, so how does it work? Because I'm a soldier and I do training and validation for the National Guard, which is a, state employee and a federal government employee, depend on what training they are doing. I'm also an active duty soldier,
Wow.
and I understand the
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand the criteria of that, and I'm also a truck driver for New York City. So where does that put me? Because I know, like I say, with ethics and the board of ethics, they are so stringent with it
Yes.
because they require us not to have a second job or anything of that nature.
You are just like the trifecta, right? You cover almost three different levels. And I just not to risk anything, like, you know, so you would ask the question and say, I'm gonna offer, plumbing supplies, let's say. And you can ask the ethics board, I want to start doing business. It's now related to what I do. Transportation, law enforcement, training. I just want to sell products. Can I proceed? And you can ask that question. If it doesn't interfere or doesn't create a conflict of interest, you can go ahead. So you can do it that way.
Okay,
You,
thank you.
so the other thing is, if you have uh, anyone that you're gonna be doing business with, you just can't be the majority owner and you can still do business that way. That's a strategy in itself, right? So if you find someone that you can partner up with, let them take the lead and then you guys can do business that way. Cause
But then,
you're not the 51% owner. But I would still ask the question to the ethics board. Because of the simple fact, you never want to cross them. Cause that they'll come after you really hard.
yeah, but
But
how if I give up 51% of my company, then it cannot be minority owned, black owned, or veterans owned because then I don't have the majority. So that is gonna be a disadvantage to my
right, but I based it on trying to do business. I didn't base it on the other factors, right? So it just so you got to work with me here. I can't. I figured out a solution, but I don't have it. I can't fix everything else. But that would be a way that if you really just want to engage, and then when you retire or you are on a when you leave the service, you can just buy the shares back and become the 51% owner. You can do it that way if you want. But it's always based on a trusted person
okay.
that you can do it with. Just don't do it just to because you want to get it done. Because a partnership or anyone it's almost like a marriage, right? And you want to make sure that you find the right person to work with. Everything can be hammered out that way. Okay. And thank you for your
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Um, I want to know where to go to look this. All right. So, Doris, how new are you? If you can unmute yourself.
Okay, so this is my first time I saw this email and I've been hearing about government contracts. So I said, let me listen in and see where I take off from there. So
Sure.
bear with me if questions don't even make sense.
No. We're gonna make sense of everything, so don't worry about it. Go for it.
Okay, so I was trying to find out. I'm a nurse practitioner. I mean, I have a business as a nurse practitioner, and I also work for the government. But then, I just wanna, I guess I just wanna look at how these contracts go and see if I can begin to even find anything that I can go into in terms of in the area of health field.
So the four websites I gave you will give you a sense of that. There's also one more, depending on the agency that you want to work with. Um, uh, Hospitals have their own opportunities also because you're a nurse. They like to outsource a lot of the work. They don't want, remember, they don't want to take on payroll, so they're going to outsource it. So hospitals have that, especially like Health and Hospitals Corporation has, that's a city, that's a city network, right? But even other
Yeah.
hospitals have that. There are state hospitals too. So you could look at their individual portals that can give you a sense of what they have. But you again, you also have to ask the question: what is that you require before you get it, before you do anything? Requirements are big. What kind of insurance? What kind of licenses are you looking for? What are your payment terms? Those are the questions you need to ask. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Any other question? Any other questions out there? One more. Come on. Grant, Henya Grant, hopefully I pronounced it right. Go on. Give me that last question.
Yes, okay.
All right.
So the question that I have is,
Yes.
I wanted to know, you mentioned 60 to 90 days that the government pays, which is true. That's what I definitely have seen.
Mm.
My question is just a small technical one in terms of whether or not, like, 60 to 90 days from what is the trend? From your bills being approved, or bills being in, your invoices being approved rather?
Yeah.
What is the benchmark?
Oh, this, you know, it's funny. This is not a simple question. So let me explain this in the best way possible. So everything is performance based. What that means is that the government has to receive some type of finished product or service before they pay. So when they deem it that it's complete, the clock starts. So if your remember, if your project says 30 days, it means that the project didn't start from the date of assignment. It starts actually from the date of when they received it. Now, the clock will start there, but it also allows them, there's something called the Prompt Payment Act, which everybody uses it.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, we're gonna do 90 days, but that's so they, for some reason, they take very long to pay anything out. And so the invoice is received, but then it has to go through an approval process. And that approval process can take that 30 days. So now you're at 60. So this is where I said 60 to 120 days because of all that lag time. The biggest issue I would tell you is the accounting department. Whoever handles accounting for that agency, if they don't have enough staff, or if they have policies that are very dismissive of small businesses, or if for example, there's some that base payments on the size of the contract. The higher the contract, the faster they pay. The lower the contract value or dollar, the slower they pay. This is all from experience. So this is where you have to communicate early with the agency of, what is your payment? What payment? Oh, 90 days. No, that's not what I'm asking you. I need to understand what your process is for payments.
Okay.
Because then now they have to think like, oh, this is how we do it. And you could plan better to say, okay, I'm going to be short because these people are going to take long. But I think just don't take it just don't take them at the word. They need to explain what they're going to do with your invoices. And I think that helps a lot more. Hopefully I answered your question.
Thank you. I have another question too.
Go for it.
So, my question was, let's see, wasn't regarding, I lost it. Wasn't regarding payment. It was, I lost it, so I'll have to think about it for a second.
Sure.
Yeah.
What was the question about? Do you remember
That's
that?
what I'm trying to think.
Oh, okay. Just maybe a keyword.
I don't think it was, yeah, I don't think it was responses. It wasn't payment earned. Oh, I know what it was. Okay, I got it now. So it was in terms of financing. So what I've seen is that just in general, to try to get that financing or line of credit or what have you, um, is it? I mean, what is the best? Where's the best place to go? Is it a traditional lending institution, or is it a nonprofit organization that works with lenders? I know that obviously depends on the profile of the business, but and the principles. But what do you think is the best approach in order to get financing, in order to make sure that you're well capitalized to take advantage of a contract?
That's a great question. So the way that you got to look at it is you're going to need the commercial institutions either way. You have to get a bank account, right? There are credit unions and different things. If you served in the military, what is it? The Navy Credit Union. That's a big one for our vets, right? For our people that serve. So they're really good. So you can start there. You always start there, but you're also going to need a commercial institution, one of the big banks. But you should always sit down with someone that's very experienced in that bank that knows the ins and outs of the loans. But from my experience, I've sat down with some business advisors, and they are relying on the screen to tell me everything. They don't really know the process, and that hurts as a business because you want to understand what are the requirements, right? And who makes the decision at the end of the day. So what I've also learned from my interactions is that does the branch manager have a say in the loan process, or is it left to corporate or to an algorithm? Because that also drives the conversation. So understanding the commercial aspects or the commercial requirements of everything is really important. But your backstop, or the one that you really want to look at, is the CDFI network. CDFI network gets grant money to loan out, or they get Department of Treasury money, or they got private funders, and that money has a different criteria for lending. Credit score doesn't need to be high. They focus on certain minority and women-owned businesses, or vets. There's different program, contract financing. So there's different programs like, what's your dollar value for lending? Oh, we only do up to 50,000. You can start there. That means that the threshold for you to meet is a lot lower. So you can have that as your go-to, while you're still working on the commercial institution requirement. Because that takes some banks, they'll say you need 2 years of history with us. Okay, 2 years. But 2 years is a long time to wait. So you might not have 2 years. One thing I would never do, but I've seen it happen. It happens a lot. People get very desperate because they didn't plan for financing, so they go to something called factoring. And factoring is based on invoices, but these invoices, they'll pay you up to 80%, but there's 20% that they probably might keep. And if that invoice stays open, you're paying that interest compounded. So you actually, by the time you really get paid, you've lost all your money and you owe them money. So don't ever go into the factoring option, or don't start borrowing from credit cards and things like that, because the interest rates are 20%. You start losing money immediately. It is an emergency. If you really need to do it, you do it. But you try to get the lowest interest rate, you plan for it. You say, okay, this is my emergency loan. If I need to go into it, I can get it because I meet the criteria. Also look at your personal credit. Also, a lot of people think that business credit and personal credit are two separate things, and they are not. You know, because remember, you have to guarantee the loan. So the business won't be able to do it early on, but you're the personal guarantor. So you need to be able to have a decent credit in order for you to get these program, get any type of financing. Okay. Hopefully I answer your
Yeah.
question.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question? Going once? Going twice? Sold. Oh, there's a question, I got one more. All right,
So you speak about Navy Federal,
yes,
Navy Federal Credit Union,
right,
and you also spoke about that your bank needs to operate on Sundays if you do. Now, okay, so with Navy Federal, because I have a business about them, what problems I think there are awesome bank with small businesses and things with their interest rate and their lending and their line of credit is awesome, and they give a business credit card. But footprint, their branch is only located in Virginia. So to really get like into a branch is very hard. I just sent them an email the other day and they responded that they are looking to put a location either in New Jersey or somewhere here in New York State and stuff. But how do you get around that? Because even though you may find banks that are very good that you would like to do business, like a lot of black owned banks
right,
like Carver and stuff, who has only a location in Harlem,
yeah.
and
And
then
Brooklyn.
most of them are down south.
Yeah.
How do you deal with footprint?
So when I talked about the hours and stuff, it has to really meet your needs, right? And I tell you from experience, I had a bank that was that it was what was it? People's United Bank, right? People's United Bank was the only branch I could get to that was open was at a Stop and Shop, which was a problem. And I couldn't it was just like a nightmare to do any business. So one of the things that you can do is use two bank accounts. You have your Navy Credit Union, Federal Credit Union, and then you have your local bank. And you can talk to them about how do you handle transfer between bank to bank? Because nowadays you can really move money from one bank to another. You know, they call them wires or they call them transfers. And then how long the transfers will take. So your local bank will be your stopgap if the Navy Federal Credit Union doesn't have a branch. So you can do all of that and it'll be that go between until you can get a branch in your area. But that's the way I do. So usually having two different types of banks, but can they communicate quickly or fast enough that you can get to either funds or loans and very quickly? Hopefully I answered your
Okay,
question.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, you did, because that is one of the biggest things with footprint, where people may want to do business with banks that give you really, really good
Right.
interest rate, and it's very business friendly, and stuff like that. And people may not credit unions, but there are very good business friendly entities, even though a lot of them don't offer, and a lot of them require you to be a federal employee, a city employee, a teacher, You know, other than if you work for big corporation like Con Edison, who has a team, who's member of Teamsters, who has their own credit union that also support businesses. So, you know, that
no,
is why I asked the question.
It's understood that so you use one bank as, it also, another thing is look at their ability to make things happen quickly. I used to belong to a credit union and they were slow, like it was like molasses. They were just slow. And it would take them days to do something. That was years ago. But you want to say, hey, if a deposit comes in, how fast it does it show up? Or can I, one of the features that I like always is that if I deposit a check, can can I actually make transactions? You don't have to give me money, but can I make transactions? Yes, you can. They're covered because you have a check in flux or in the system. So those little features come in to really play a good a quick turnaround. So you use one for certain things and then the other, but where are you going to receive your payments? Or one bank might be just for savings, and then the other one is all for the transactions. So you do it that way. Doris.
Yeah, I know with Navy Federal, like they depend on how big your payroll is and your how much you write your bills. Your
Right.
overdraft on the account is 10% over that. And as long as you keep within that writing your bills, then it is. So if your checks come in, it will clear the 3 days later if it needs to be a hold on it, but you always have that overdraft wherein it's if your bills for the month is 50,000 including your payroll, then they give you 50,000 plus 10% and to keep you running. So that is one of the reasons why I
That's a
stay with them.
I'm a fan already. That's a you
But
see them.
the line of credit is awesome. They give you, depending on what they value your business for, they give you a line of credit up to 250,000.
And that's what's important. Does your bank favor middle large businesses or does it favor a small business, right? Does it have things to support me? Because not everything comes in the way you want it. There are changes, you're trying to manage the day to day. You have 2 or 3 different jobs and then you're trying to manage a business. So there's always going to be a delay in something, but how much of a support system do you have for me to stay in business? That's why it's important. So thank you for that. That was awesome. Doris, you have a question?
Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us.
Oh, anytime. I look forward to seeing you soon. We have other things happening at the Entrepreneurial Assistance Center. So stay close. There's Jennifer and Kenya will keep sending more different topics that we're going to cover. But also we have different types of training being offered at the same time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Doris? Okay. I guess Doris doesn't have a question.
I do. I
Oh,
do. I
okay.
just realized I wasn't on.
Sure.
I'm so sorry.
No worries.
I asked me where to go to find these contracts, at least to familiarize myself. And you mentioned that you listed some 3 websites. I'm looking around. I don't see any websites.
I'm going to send the slides over, but they're all here. If you look at the screen. So
Okay.
they're all listed there for you.
Okay.
So then you could.
Oh,
and-
okay. Thank
Yeah, I just didn't I'm gonna list them differently, but I just put the websites on and so as I could talk about them. But you having,
All right.
that,
Thank you.
yes. You're welcome. And one more question. One more question.
You can
Yeah.
unmute and ask your question.
Let's see.
Gracia, you have a question?
No, I do not. I asked
Okay.
mine too.
Okay. Well, then I
I
want
have
to
a
thank
question.
everybody
I
for
have a
logging on.
question.
Go
All
ahead.
right.
So, one of the things that, I don't know, I don't recall that you touched on it, but in terms of discretionary spending, um, you know, is there any way that you, or any approach that you suggest in order to determine what, um, contracts or what an agency has, in their, you know, bandwidth to issue, contracts that are, at the discretionary level. A lot of times, you go to the contract reporter and you'll see that they're issuing a discretionary contract, but that's after they just, publicizing that,
Right.
to be in compliance. So is there any approach that you suggest in order to kind of, position yourself to take advantage of discretionary, contract?
I love this group already. I mean, I want to stay with you guys. Because the questions are spot on. With discretionary spend is that it's a quick buy, right? There's really, they talk about how, I think SBS was hosting an event on it, right? And they were talking about, how discretionary works. Discretionary works very quickly. So the order for you to sort of put your foot into that door is to really talk to the agency that's buying your services or products and say, look, I know you buy what I sell, and I would like to be able to compete for those dollars. Can I register with you as a vendor? Now, they're not, a lot of them use the large list, but then they have a secondary list. For example, I'll use Sylvia Community College, right? I'll use the colleges. Colleges all operate independently. So some stuff will go out to the contract reporter, but a lot of their buying activity is discretionary because it's quick. So they do have a procurement department, and that department holds onto a list. Who are the vendors that we can provide us the services or goods that we need on a very quick turnaround? That's why you should always communicate with the customer or the agency you want to work with and focus there. That will give you a leg up because now you're in their internal database, not the external one. And that's how you can get your hands on those discretionary opportunities.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. I think we are set.
All right. Thank you so much, Edgar, for your presentation tonight and all of your wonderful information. Very informative. And thank you, everybody, for logging on and all of your questions. We do have our emails going out. You will receive an email on Monday about what workshops we have next week. And I hope to see you all very soon. Everybody have a wonderful evening.
You too. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Kenya. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great
You're welcome.
Mother's Day also.
Oh, yes, yes. Everyone, have a great Mother's Day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the week. Stay